Hey everyone. One of the cool things about Savage Worlds is the number of settings that are available. And I want to talk about one today called Task Force Raven. It's a savage world, strange as a wind. Hey everyone, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. We'd love your support so we can buy more Savage World stuff, which is the whole point of the channel. So anyway, let's get right into it. So today I wanted to talk a little bit, give an overview of a product called Task Force Raven, which is a setting for Savage Worlds, written and designed by Scott W. Um, doesn't list the last name, just Scott W. And available at Drive-Thru RPG from a company called the Rune Forge. Now, I'm not going to do a review. I'm just going to talk about some of the cool stuff I found in the game, maybe, or in the setting, and maybe a little bit of overview of what's there, and then let you go from there. So, Task Force Raven is really a concept where you are playing special ops, real kind of real world special ops, not kind of fantasied out. I mean, this book really contains a lot of information to make you feel like you're in the special forces. It's all about special ops. It's all about taking place in the modern day. And it includes cryptids and secrets and stuff like that. But it's not a Call of Cthulhu type game. So think of Delta Green, but a little more grounded in reality. So really an interesting take on some Savage Worlds setting stuff. So it's really cool. So in the getting started, they start with a good set of skills, your operative. So they're designed to be capable right off the bat. So starts with a good number of skills. You get one, what they call operational specialty, and you start with 4 advances. So you're already a seasoned person as you come into being an operative. There's only humans as part of the setting, which is what you'd expect from a modern day kind of special ops sort of game. And then they have the skill battled is also there, and that's actually used for gunship support and air support and stuff like that, which is kind of cool to be honest. Um, so one of the things that I found in character creation that was kind of cool, and it's a little thing, was at the end of it, you create your own handle, right? That's the thing that somebody's gonna know you as, Maverick, Blackjack, whatever, and that's kind of cool. Then you also decide on what they call a combat operations specialty, a COS. And there's 8 given in the book. For example, there's one called the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Officer, and that gives some basic type, die types, skills, that sort of thing. And then you get to choose an advanced training. And there's 3 that they offer in this particular COS. One is underwater demolition. One is WMD, which removes complications for dramatic tasks to disarm a WMD, and then insurgency, which is all about making improvised weapons. So you get to choose one of those as part of your being an explosive ordnance disposal. Now there's 8 of them, like I said, so that's pretty cool. Hindrances, there's 6 new ones. One of the examples that I thought was kind of interesting is called "No One Left Behind," and this is that can't leave a friend alive or dead on the battlefield or behind. You've got to go back to for them. Doesn't matter how dangerous the situation is, you got to go do it. And so I thought that was a pretty cool hindrance that really helps with the flavor of the kind of game that this is all about. Edges, if I counted right, there's about 35 new ones. So that's significant. There's a lot of them there. Some add flavor. That's really kind of special to this area. Like I'll use a couple examples. One of them is close quarters, which is if you're using a pistol or some machine gun in melee, your target number remains 4. So that's a really cool kind of flavor, right? You're a special ops. You really know how to use this. You're in the middle of combat, so you're not using your parry. You can still shoot them with a target number of 4. That's kind of cool. And then there's one called Crucible, which talks about you graduated from an extremely physical and emotionally challenged operators course, like Navy SEALs kind of thing, and you gain +1 to your toughness. Those are the kinds of edges that you find in the game in this particular setting book. Some of them feel again that they're close to what you might find in the core book, give you that same kind of benefit, but there's 35. You can really use them kind of as is in your game. Some of them also would be very useful, I think, in anything where you're trying to do that, um, you know, uh, even a spy type game or something like that, they might be useful. Setting rules. So now setting rules are pretty cool. Um, Again, very much about the flavor of the game that you're trying to play when you're talking about special ops in the modern day. So one of them's called Milsim, 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 and that increases the die type for extra damage based on raises. So you're a badass. You really have your training, and if you get a raise, you're increasing the die type. There's also one called More Than a Raise, and that gives a table that you can roll against on a raise. And it's some of the example, like an example would be you get a Benny um, and a bonus to the same check in the future if you get that raise and you're playing with that More Than a Raise. Um, there's a gear section in this game, which is pretty robust in the sense of it talks about the kinds of weapons you're going to have, the kinds of things from a structure standpoint, right? There's light guns, there's heavier guns. And then it gives a nice picture in the book that has sort of a list of all the different weapon types and silhouette, which is kind of cool, I thought. It gives you the flavor because the Savage Worlds really doesn't have that gear porn kind of feeling in most settings. And here it's really also operational and it's all about what you can do. But by having that picture in the book and by having the ability to pick certain things, like you can pick that P90, it still is doing the kind of damage that you expect a weapon of a certain size would be doing based on the caliber and that sort of thing. But it's kind of fun that you get to kind of fit yourself up with something a little special. Now, when you talk about in the core Savage Worlds with trademark weapon, I could see, very cool taking something like that and making it your trademark weapon. There's a list of equipment that you'd expect for a special ops, which is a little bit specialized than what you might find in the core book. For example, they got a laser designator, they got magnetic climbing gear, so you can be, that guy who's climbing the side of the building using these specialized tools. There's an underdoor camera, right? Because that's very much in flavor with getting the intel first, running the camera up underneath, seeing what's going on inside the building. And there's a bunch of others that are in the setting. So I thought the gear list was very much in flavor with what you have. You can obviously use what's in the core book, leveraging that sort of thing. So it's pretty cool. I thought. Um, there's a section, then we get into the section that's all about the game master and what's going on in the game master's area. And this is where it really gets into the meat of the setting. So everything before is I feel like was kind of is very generic to if you want to run a special ops kind of game that's more high skilled but not not in the um, not in the supernatural space, right? There's a lot of cool stuff you can take from an edges, some of the hindrances, and then those setting rules. All of that kind of plays into that feeling. But now you get into the section of the world that's kind of hidden for the GM. So if you're a player, maybe you don't want to listen to this. I'll try to keep it kind of generic and not get too much away, but it's hard not to. So this gets into where there's the kinds of cultists out there, the extremists, kind of what their origins are, information about them, where they came from, and then special artifacts that they may have. And the artifacts are where kind of the powers and that sort of thing come into the world and kind of affect the world. Um, they also have a section on rituals and rites, and it talks about how to use those and what they mean. And that's really how you implement the arcane backgrounds in the setting. Again, if you don't use any of that, you've got a pretty straightforward game. But if you want to bring in again that supernatural, that with the cryptids and sort of there's a world beyond our world kind of thing, you can do that. This is where a new stat called Psych comes into play, which I think is one half of your spirit. That now goes into Psych is affected by things. It's when bad things happen or when you're going up a certain way, psych gets eaten away until basically you're out of it and bad things happen to you. um, so there's also a section on talismans and relics, talismans and relics, and these are powerful magic items in a sense. They again bring powers to the game. There's a section that's on running the game, which is very nice if you want to have that military feeling, because it talks about military organizations, it talks about rules of engagement, talks about the rules behind interrogation and what that means. So that's pretty cool. There's an operations section, and this goes beyond kind of that military organization, but starts talking about how adventures are put together, and operations, how they're put together. And it's there's part of it which is I I read it through once. I really need to read it through again. But what's kind of cool is it talks about how you put together an operation. And it felt really much like, you're in a military campaign, you're doing a special ops, and here's the steps that go into getting ready. And for example, it had a thing called F3EAD, and that stands for find, fix, finish, exploit, analyze, disseminate. And it goes through in the book and talks about what each one of those stages means and how the player characters would go through those stages to be able to, execute their mission. Um, and so that I thought, I'm not an expert in this area. I thought that really for someone who knows nothing about it, it made me feel like if I went through that section, I'd kind of understand what it means to, go through this process of getting ready for a mission or an operation, what goes into it, the things to think about from an intelligence, from a reconnaissance, so I thought that was pretty cool. It was a nice section that they included in the book. Then there's a section that's called Op4, which is opposition force, obviously, and that talks about other operatives, military things that the characters might encounter. Things like gunners. There's RPG gunners. It talks about bomb makers, all that sort of stuff. And then there's a section on cryptids. So this is where it brings in that supernatural, odd creatures into the mix. So it's the monsters of the setting. Now, none of these monsters, when I read through it, unless I missed it, but these monsters are like Cthulhu type monsters. I mean, they're really more monster of the week. I think more X-Files. But again, I didn't go through every one of them, and there could be some that are super powerful, but this is not a Call of Cthulhu type setting. Which is good because, there's Call of Cthulhu for this. You want to be a badass special ops, taking on things, solving, solving problems. So it's got a different flair from the, Delta Green and Call of Cthulhu, where it's helplessness and doesn't matter what you do, it's all going to end bad anyway, right? And then there's this entire chapter on generating cryptids, and this uses cards to generate them. Things like a card to do body type, a card to do head type, the abilities, the capabilities of the cryptid that the players might go against. So there's an entire chapter on kind of randomizing that out for a game master to create them if they don't feel comfortable. But let's be honest, that's as a game master, that's part of that creativity. That part of what's fun from a world building is creating monsters, right? And you don't normally get to do that in a modern game. So go wild, But if you need some inspiration, it's definitely there for you. And then there's a glossary of kind of special ops terms that are used, which I thought, it's just a glossary, right? But I thought it was pretty cool because again, it's that flavor, right? Because everybody's using 3-letter acronyms to describe what's going on. Like, for example, QRF stands for Quick Reaction Force. ROC stands for Rehearsal of Concept. And there's just a bunch more. And so I thought that was all pretty cool. So I would definitely, try this out in some of my modern games where, I want the players to feel like they're really kind of special operatives. They're in the military. I don't have that background. I feel like this setting gives me some of that. I don't know how it would play with, going against monsters of the week kind of thing. Looks like it might be kind of fun. Again, you're badass. You start off as seasoned with a lot of capability, and you're going up against, you could be going up against these cryptids and taking them out. So, maybe you are going more for an alien, but weaker alien kind of flavor. So you've got bunch of setting rules that make the flavor. You've got a ton of edges. You got a few new hindrances. Good setting rules. Like I said, gear, not crazy on a million items in gear like you used to get in a lot of military games, but it's good for the flavor. Again, I love the picture. And then you've got a great section that describes kind of the world. It doesn't get into too much detail from a standpoint of, a lot of maps and a lot of atlas stuff. It really just what the game master needs to kind of create the flavor of what he's trying to do. And there's those sections that make you feel like an operative because it teaches you how to run an op. It gives you the lingo. So it's pretty cool. So again, I haven't played it. I just read it. I thought I'd share some of what's in it with you guys. Thanks again for watching. This is Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. Please support us. We'd love to buy lots more Savage World stuff. Thank you much. Oh, and don't forget about our Mastering the RPG podcast. Talk to you later. Bye. It's a savage world, strange as a weird war. It's a savage world, classics to explore. It's a savage world.